Today, the United States is preparing for war in the Middle East. This is the new, very foreign environment our soldiers face in the Persian Gulf, and where they may remain for a long time. Why are we here, and where are we going? Today on America's Defense Monitor, we look at oil, arms, and the Gulf. America's Defense Monitor. A weekly program on the military and international affairs that affect you, your family, and people throughout the world. Here is your host, Admiral Gene LaRocque.
Welcome once again to America's Defense Monitor. All of us in the United States are very much concerned about what is happening in the Middle East. Particularly those of us who have children, spouses, and relatives and friends in the Middle East are beginning to wonder just how in the world we got into this mess. Obviously, it appears to many of us that we are on a course toward war. We don't have to stay on that course, but at the moment we're on a course toward war. In an area of the world where Americans know very little about. Our program today is about the Middle East, about oil and arms in the Gulf.
On August 2nd, 1990, Iraq invaded the neighboring country of Kuwait. The event shook the world. Oil prices skyrocketed, and the international community searched for responses. The United States quickly assumed the dominant role in shaping that response.
And our objectives remain clear: the immediate, complete, and unconditional withdrawal of all Iraqi forces from Kuwait, the restoration of Kuwait's legitimate government, security and stability of Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf, and protection of the lives of American citizens abroad. We will achieve these honorable goals.
Those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/21.
On August 6th, the United Nations passed Resolution 661, authorizing economic sanctions against Iraq. The same day, President Bush ordered the first U.S. troops to be deployed to the region. The military buildup has continued unabated. The Middle East is at the crossroads of three continents: Europe, Africa, and Asia. Iraq, with a population of 19 million, is a bit larger than California. Kuwait, with a population of 2 million, is approximately 50 miles wide and about 100 miles from north to south. It is slightly smaller than New Jersey. Kuwait is more than 6,500 miles from Washington. Saudi Arabia has a population of 17 million and is about 1/4 the size of the United States. Today it hosts several 100,000 American GIs. Stretching across North Africa through the Middle East to Pakistan, this region is home to about 2/3 of the world's 800 million Muslims. The holy cities of Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia attract worshippers from all corners of the Muslim world. The Middle East is also the home of vast quantities of oil. This resource has been the main reason for outside involvement in the area throughout this century.
We're also talking about maintaining access to energy resources that are key not just to the functioning of this country, but to the entire world. Our jobs, our way of life, our own freedom, and the freedom of friendly countries around the world would all suffer if control of the world's great oil reserves fell into the hands of that one man, Saddam Hussein.
Some experts argue that the threat to Western oil access and to the world economy may be less serious. We spoke with William Maines, editor of the prominent journal Foreign Policy, about Saddam Hussein's threat to our oil supplies.
That he might have the margin of reducing actual world production something like 6%. Now that's very serious, but it would drive the price of oil up around $28. Now, right now, the cost of oil per barrel out of the Persian Gulf is, according to some estimates, between $100 and $300 if you factor in the cost of the American military commitment there. But I think we also have to avoid hysteria in looking at what are the real economic issues involved.
There are an estimated 1 trillion barrels of extractable oil in the world today. The Middle East has approximately 65% of the world's proven oil reserves. That is, extractable oil, which is known to exist. But proven world oil reserves are continually increasing as more is discovered. The reserves doubled in the past decade. The United States depends on Mideast oil for about 5% of its total energy consumption. About 25% of U.S. oil imports come from the Middle East. The Soviet Union is the largest producer of oil in the world. In this new age of U.S.-Soviet cooperation, the Soviet Union is potentially an important new source of oil for the West. Because of U.S. support of Israel in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Saudi Arabia led other Arab nations in an oil embargo against the United States. The United States suffered great economic damage. Some modest steps were taken to adjust to the new energy situation. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was created to cushion future oil shocks. Today it could supply the United States for over 300 days if all oil from the Mideast were cut off. Alternative energy sources and conservation were encouraged in the 1970s. But during the 1980s, the Reagan administration abandoned most of the programs. To reduce its dependence on foreign oil, the United States could again provide incentives to develop alternative fuels and conservation. What would happen to oil supplies if war comes to the Gulf?
The oil fields in the entire area could be wrecked, and the price of oil, which is now in the 30s, could shoot up to astronomical heights with disastrous implications for the American economy and the world economy.
Joe Stork is the knowledgeable editor of the Middle East Report and director of the Middle East Research and Information Project. He thinks that Arab countries are as dependent on revenue from oil sales as the West is on oil consumption.
I mean, Iraq is like many of the other oil producers, has become more and more dependent itself on oil revenues as a proportion of its total revenues, of government revenues, over the last 15 years. Iraq has to sell its oil and any oil it controls, such as Kuwaiti oil.
To develop its economy, Iraq is almost completely dependent on selling oil. Oil exports provide about 95% of foreign earnings.
Virtually need all of the revenues they get from the sale of oil for just day-to-day import needs of goods and services, development projects, infrastructure, road building, schools, factories, military establishments. If ever an embargo could work, this is the situation in which it can work.
There is a long, complex history of U.S. involvement with oil producers in the Middle East. Bahrain in the Persian Gulf has been home to a small U.S. naval base since 1948. In Iran, the CIA overthrew the elected government in 1953 and installed the Shah to keep assured access to oil. The oil crisis of 1973 led to serious discussion among U.S. officials about using American military forces to control oil fields in the Gulf. In the 1970s, the United States substantially expanded its military activities in the Middle East. At Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, a large permanent naval base was built. A big naval force has been maintained in the Indian Ocean since the 1970s. The Central Command was established to coordinate U.S. military operations in the region. The Rapid Deployment Force was created. Altogether, in the 1980s, the United States spent about $40 billion a year on military forces preparing for war in the Middle East. Huge arms sales and aid programs have been a key element in the U.S. approach to the region for many years. Much of this aid has been focused on Israel, but other countries have also been big arms recipients and buyers. Egypt has received billions in military and economic assistance. The Egyptian desert became the stage for U.S. military training exercises designed to prepare for Middle East warfare. Saudi Arabia became the #1 purchaser of U.S. arms over the last 2 decades. The United States essentially created Saudi military power. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built 5 Army bases, 2 naval bases, and 3 air bases there. A substantial number of American military and civilian personnel have been in Saudi Arabia for years. However, stability through arms buildups has been an elusive goal. The United States has not been the only big arms salesman. Most Americans have been unaware of the historical roots of many Middle East conflicts. The trouble between Iraq and Kuwait did not begin in August 1990. Marvin Feuerwerger worked as a Middle East specialist in the Department of Defense during the Reagan administration. He is now at the influential Washington Institute for Near East Policy.
Well, basically, the conflict between Iraq and Kuwait is a long-standing one, going back, in effect, hundreds of years. And Iraq did attempt to move south previously in the 1960s and the 1970s, in fact, actually deploying troops into Kuwait in the mid-1970s.
In the 1980s, the United States and many other countries supported Iraq against Iran. Professor Sami Farsoon, a highly respected Mideast expert at the American University in Washington, elaborates.
Had the Iranians defeated Saddam and won Iraq, and they would have turned Iraq into another Iran in a sense, and that would have been a real threat to the oil-producing areas and Western interests throughout the region. So the support that Saddam Hussein and his military got was just phenomenal during the 80s. So the curious thing was sort of the turnaround, in a sense, against Saddam. He seemed to have gotten too big for his britches, in a sense, after the end of the Iraq-Iran war.
Iraq's invasion of Iran in September of 1980 was every bit as illegal, as aggressive as the invasion of Kuwait, and yet the United States looked rather benignly on that particular invasion because it seemed at the time to suit U.S. interests.
Who is Saddam Hussein, a man unknown to most Americans until a few months ago? The outcome of the present deadlock is largely dependent on his actions. Milton Vjorst is the Middle East correspondent for the New Yorker magazine. He has an extensive background in the region and recently met with Saddam Hussein.
He is not a man I think you would like to sit down and have dinner with. But I don't think he is Hitler. I don't think he is a megalomaniac. I think he has a strong sense of patriotism, and truly he is strongly followed by his people. We must not kid ourselves about that. He kept his country together, a highly heterogeneous country, for 8 very, very difficult years while fighting the Iranians. He is not a nice man. He is a brutal, if you like. I mean, I won't fight if you want to call him a thug. Yes, he is. But he is leader of the country, and we've got to deal with him.
Recent months have seen the biggest U.S. military operation since the Vietnam War. The United States has deliberately built up a force capable of attacking and defeating Iraq. Now, American political and military officials debate when and if they should go to war. We talked with Joseph Churba about the war option. He is the president of the International Security Council, an influential private foreign policy organization. Churba was an Air Force intelligence specialist on the Middle East.
To deploy and not use this force is, in my judgment, a misapplication of military power. If the American force undertakes the operation alone and drubs Saddam Hussein and establishes a new order in Iraq, then I think that there would be something of a Pax Americana in the region. The Arabs would have seen finally the demonstration of American will and determination and capability to use its power politically, and that it is a serious superpower. And our stature and our credibility would be enormous.
Other experts question the war option.
I don't believe it is worth a war. I think it's a desirable goal, getting Iraq out of Kuwait. I think it can be accomplished by means short of war. A war would liberate no one. It would devastate the entire region. As far as Kuwait is concerned, I think we're clearly talking about a replay of that famous Vietnam scene of destroying the village in order to save it.
We will be seeing the sight of American boys dying for oil that basically goes to Europe and Japan, and I don't care how much money they contribute. I think that's an untenable situation. It'll lead to an explosion of anger against the Muslim world, even though there will be some Muslim countries presumably supporting us.
Some Arab countries oppose an offensive war against Iraq. The Arab countries have condemned Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, but they have not agreed on how to resolve the conflict. Arab countries, including nations which have sent troops, are experiencing internal opposition to military cooperation with the United States. But President Bush sees widespread support.
I am very grateful for the support all of us here are receiving from the American people. The American people are with us. Congress is with us. Our allies are with us. And the vast majority of the Arab people are with us.
Joe Stork finds a divided Arab world.
If you look at the Arab League vote, which supposedly has sanctioned this U.S. intervention, we're talking about 12 states out of the 21 members of the Arab League which voted to approve of the U.S. military deployments in Saudi Arabia. A situation is developed as one person from the region put it to me. You know, it's support Kuwait against Iraq, but support Iraq against the United States. This is not support for Saddam Hussein, essentially. This is really a protest solidarity. It's against what they see as effectively an attempt to recolonize or reimpose the old colonial structures on the region.
Some think the United States may need to help the Arab nations play the lead role in peacefully resolving this confrontation.
I certainly don't think that the United States should try to stop people from coming to talk about the problem. So first thing we do is we talk to them, and we create opportunities to talk to them. The second thing I think we ought to do is, as I indicated earlier, begin to de-escalate this crisis, and if the Iraqis respond, we should continue to respond. The third thing we should do, I think, is encourage the Arabs in their effort to try to work out an Arab solution, or the Secretary General.
Milton Vjorst thinks the economic embargo can work, but he says Saddam Hussein is unlikely to yield to military threats.
I mean, I think that we can achieve all of our objectives in terms of material interests rather easily in this situation. But we are not going to do it by trying to scare him.
No matter how this confrontation is resolved, whether through war or diplomacy, some serious issues need to be confronted.
I think it's unrealistic in the Middle East to attempt to disarm one party. The problem is that Israel also has chemical and nuclear arms. And as long as that is the case, then some Arab country is going to try to get those arms.
Can stability be achieved in such a volatile area without addressing underlying causes of unrest? What new political and military structures are being proposed? The United States has stated its bold objective of securing stability in the region. Some foresee U.S. military forces stationed permanently in the Middle East, and perhaps a new U.S.-led military alliance modeled on NATO.
I don't know any reason why we can't develop a regional security structure that can constrain this man or any other leader who might have the same ambitions and desires. It worked in Europe, and I don't doubt for 1 minute that we can do it here.
Perhaps the United States does not need to take on a big new military mission in the Middle East. Dr. Farsoon believes the Arab nations can work out their own arrangements.
I think some kind of a regional but not foreign security apparatus, which would involve military as well as intelligence as well as political arrangements, may be able to be put in place. But that would require a non-intervention from the West and certainly not Western presence in the region. That, I think, is not prone to bring about in any way a real peace in that part of the world.
Can the United States exercise the same kind of leadership in the Middle East as it did in Europe after World War II? The close cultural ties that the United States had with European countries are absent in the Middle East. Anti-Western sentiment among the people of the region is strong.
Since the First World War, there has been very strong sentiment throughout the Arab world, often characterized as Arab nationalism, for two basic things. One, ending foreign presence and domination, and two, Arab unity of the Arab peoples and so forth.
This sentiment, however strong, has not unified the region. Some governments are more supportive of the United States' role than others. In addition to Arab nationalism, the differences between rich and poor in the Middle East also generate anti-U.S. emotion. The United States has supported the regimes of the enormously wealthy rulers of the oil-producing states for decades. Dr. Farsoon sees these factors as major obstacles to a long-term U.S. military force in the Gulf.
I think that would be a political mistake. I think the legacy of American political, military, and security intervention in the region has not been very positive for much of the people of the region, mostly the Arabs of the region. And therefore, having American presence there for a long time will protect indeed the ruling dynasties of the oil-producing countries. Second, I think a situation where you have highly polarized economic differences, where there's masses of poor and then unbelievable wealth in the hands of the few, I think is not prone to a secure area altogether.
Saudi Arabia, the likely core of any U.S.-led regional security alliance, highlights the problems. Saudi Arabia is not a free democratic country. There are no elections. The king rules.
I think one thing you can say is it means that politically it's an extremely restrictive society. That's putting it mildly. I mean, it's in many ways almost as totalitarian as that of Saddam's more modern, secular nationalist Iraq. There are no political parties. The political system is defined by the royal family, which is extensive in its numbers, and it's the alliance of the royal family with the religious authorities.
There is massive illiteracy and poverty in Saudi Arabia despite the profits from oil exports. The other countries in the Gulf are variations of the same condition. The Western ideas and practices that would accompany any long-term U.S. military force would challenge the very structure of these feudal societies, potentially leading to upheaval. These influences are already being felt in Saudi Arabia. American women in the Army cannot shop in Saudi stores unless accompanied by a man. Some Saudi women have begun to protest the prohibition against women driving. Americans may find themselves as unwitting revolutionaries in the Persian Gulf.
How equipped do you think the United States is to understand the complexities in this conflict?
Not very. We've had basically a Eurocentric foreign policy for the last 45 years, and we know very little about this area. There are very few Americans who've even visited it. It's an alien culture for us in almost every respect, and one going through revolutionary change to boot. So to the degree we did understand it, even that basis of understanding is being changed almost every day.
So where is the United States going in the Gulf? Do we have the patience to resist going to war? Must we impose our own solutions? Do we really want to try to construct a new NATO on the shifting sands of the Middle East? The United Nations Security Council has increased pressure on Iraq by recently voting to authorize all means necessary to obtain compliance with past UN resolutions. The United States has begun to talk with Iraq about ways out of the deadlock, but the momentum toward war continues. Americans are now debating which way to go. Hearings are taking place in the U.S. Congress.
It is, in my view, wrong for the administration to be pressing the issue of using force among other nations when it has no mandate regarding the clearly expressed feelings of the American people. We have no treaties in this region. None of the countries involved are democracies. Our troops have not been attacked. Using a United Nations vote as a lever to force the Congress to support offensive action is perplexing and even cynical.
I'd like to see Saddam Hussein treated the same way he treats the babies he tosses out of incubators. I'd like to see him treated as a war criminal. And if it takes war to slam him and his regime back into sanity, then let's have war, but let's do it with wisdom.
Strong support has been expressed for letting the economic sanctions against Iraq run longer. Admiral William Crowe was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
If, in fact, the sanctions will work in 12 to 18 months instead of 6 months, the trade-off of avoiding war with its attendant sacrifices and uncertainties would, in my estimation, be more than worth it.
Admiral Jean LaRocque has also testified before Congress on the effectiveness of economic sanctions.
Over a period of time, the Iraqi military capability will be degraded, slowly at first and then very rapidly. The longer we keep those sanctions, the weaker the Iraqis are going to be. I think about a 50-50 chance that the sanctions will cause the Iraqis to pull out of Kuwait. And I think that's worth pursuing for a good bit longer on that basis.
All Americans today have a unique opportunity to make their views known on the critical issue of war and peace before the decision is made.
To receive a special packet of information on the conflict in the Gulf, grab a pencil and paper. Our address is coming up shortly.
Judo, pigs, and desert wildlife. They're all slices of Newton's apple. Stay with us and learn more next here on OPB.
Write us at America's Defense Monitor, 1500 Massachusetts Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20005, or call us at area code 202-862-0700.
Next time on Frontline, how do the world's longest-range guns end up in the arsenal of Saddam Hussein?
If there was anyone that knew how to build such a device, Dr. Bull was the man that could do it.
What did the U.S. know about Gerald Bull's secret dealings with Saddam? And who killed the brilliant arms designer?